5 years ago, I stood on this spot with my camera and shot Oman Elementary School for the last time. "35 years ago, I saw the school as a student for the last time. Today, I thought I would bring you all out here just to explore the site, maybe share a few memories, and then at the very end of the video, I'll show you my pictures and what those pictures look like today. Now down here, you can see the end of the dirt or so, a little bit of a dirt path. This is about where the front entrance of the school used to be. This is where I would always be dropped off for school and then picked up after school. We lived on a farm at the time, so my father always had to come in and pick me up from school. So we'll move in just from where the entrance used to be, and we'll stand right about here. This spot right here. What I remember most about this school is that it had two gymnasiums. There was one at the front and one at the back. And we are standing right about where the one at the front was. And one of the most important moments of my childhood took place right about here. See, one of the assignments we had in grade 6, 1985 and 1986, was we had to do some public speaking in front of an assembly of our parents. And that was very, very, very hard for me. As I've mentioned in prior videos, I do have an anxiety disorder, but at the time everybody just thought I was shy. So that day, we were instructed to give a dramatic reading to the assembly. And I remember that day very well. My reading was a poem by Shel Silverstein entitled "Sick." And apparently I must have done a good job because I won 2 awards for public speaking from that speech. I could not believe it. It was just crazy to me that I had actually won anything, because I never won anything at that time. And I've still got the plaques on my wall today. 35 years later. Where is the time gone, eh? Anyway, as we looked more at the site, the layout of the school was such that there were a row of classrooms down each side of the building. Then there was a central block of classrooms between the 2 gymnasiums. And I'm just going to go over this way. My art classroom was right about here somewhere. Just right there. And the memories I have of that class was of trying and failing to draw a tree. And they did their best to try and make me feel better about it. But I'm not sure if it worked that day. 1 year later, I would get Bernie Brown as an art teacher. And he made me feel a lot better about drawing and art. But that day I wasn't very confident in my abilities. But the other thing I remember most about this spot was they had 2 Apple computers. And that was my first exposure to computers at the time. And they showed us how to do logo programming. That was an awesome time. So we're going to go this way a little more. We're about where one of the hallways used to be. One of the outer hallways besides the central block of classrooms. And we're moving towards the other gymnasium, where another important memory in my childhood took place. Now, I'm sure a lot of you remember where you were when you saw your favorite movies for the first time. That's no exception for me. You see, one of the awesome things that they used to do at this school was bring all the kids into the gymnasium, the rear one, the one at the back, and they used to show us movies right about where I'm standing now. There were 2 movies I watched. One was Dreamscape. I didn't like that movie. 11-year-old me actually found it a bit scary. But the other movie was something special. This, folks, is where I saw Goonies for the very, very first time. And I've seen it dozens of times since. So I would have been facing this direction. There would have been a TV right about here somewhere. And all of us kids would be watching the Goonies. Boy, do I miss that time in my life. Oman School was one of only 2 schools where I had more good memories than bad. The other school would end up being McClurg High School in Wilkie, all the way at the end of grade 12. Now we're going to go this way just a little bit. And we are now entering the playground area, or what used to be the playground area. Back when I lived in Swift Current, all the schools in town in the 80s had all their old 60s and 70s playground equipment removed. And they were replaced with what the kids called creative playgrounds. These were gigantic structures made out of giant wooden beams that had all the fun stuff you'd ever want as a kid to play on. Slides, ropes, climbing nets, bridges, you name it, this thing had it. And Oman's, I remember, was particularly impressive. And we should be right about where those playground equipment was right now. The last time I saw the school, that playground gear was not here anymore. I don't know why they pulled it out, but I suspect it was due to the issue that Oman School always had back then. It was too small of a school for too many students, which is why my classroom wasn't even in the building. And I will show you where my classroom was momentarily. It's actually still around. I'm very pleased about that. At least I still have something left. I remember back when I found out the school was closing. Well, actually, I didn't find out the school was closing. I found out it was already closed and scheduled for demolition. And 2 days later, I was out here with my camera, taking all the pictures I could get. Oman School was very special to me, I have to say. At the time I arrived here, it was my 3rd school in 2 years. I'd started out at Fairview in town here, went up to grade 5, completed half of grade 5 there, and then it was off to Herbert for another half year, and possibly one of the worst school experiences of my entire life, where the teacher was the bully, not the students. And then I came here, where I was made to feel welcome for the first time. There were no bullies to speak of. The teachers respected me, and in general, I had a really good time here. Anyway, we'll move over to this fence here. And the current Maverick School, which was back then the Kinsman School. Now, if you look right over there where those blue benches are, that, folks, is my classroom. Just behind those benches. That's where I took grade 6. And I distinctly remember that jungle gym, which was the worst jungle gym in history. And still is, I think. As far as I remember, nobody played on that thing, including me. I would maybe use it to sit on to wait for classes to start again, and that's about it. Now we'll continue on here. This field coming up right over here is where most of us kids would play and run around. This is where I found out how to run fast for the very first time. See, there was this kid, a year younger than me, in grade 5. I wouldn't say he was a bully, really. He was, well, kind of more annoying, really. He would call you names, but there really wouldn't be too much animosity behind it. Anyway, one day, we were way over there by that netting, and I noticed that he was able to run really, really fast. And I asked him, "How do you do that?" He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "How do you run fast like that?" He said, "Oh, it's easy. You just kind of tense up your legs and run really fast." I didn't get it, but I tried his advice. Sure enough, it kind of worked. Kinda. Anyway, I'm going to head over there now. I'm going to pause recording for a second. I'll see you over there. So here we are at the far nets, looking back towards where the school used to be. And as you can tell, this is quite a big schoolyard, and it always has been. I always wondered why they never did more with this yard. But it's nice to have all this green space in the middle of town here. Now we'll just go over towards these trees here. I didn't walk to school very often, but right about here is where the entrance is to the yard where I would come in walking from my house on Allen Drive. And I tell you which house I lived in on Allen Drive, but I'm not sure the current owners would appreciate that too much. So there it is. I would come in from that street just right there and just come into the yard this way. Now some of you might be asking, as I wait for the car to pass, you might be asking if I made any attempt to try and obtain access to the school so I could shoot the interior one last time. And the answer to that is yes, I did. Sadly, it was for nothing. I could not get permission, and now the school is gone. Man, I would have really liked to have gotten permission just to see it one last time. But I guess the memories will have to do.